You know what? Today's article about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom just got my interest all the way up. Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flicks. My name is Chris Wong. First, we're going to talk about another rumor that Dave Bautista is joining the DCEU. Next, we're going to talk about The Flash. Michael Keaton talks about joining The Flash. Finally, we talk about why I'm very excited for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Let's talk about Dave Bautista potentially joining the DCEU. Now, once again, I have to say this is a rumor, and again, coming from Giant Freaking Robots. Dave Bautista is currently talking to Warner Brothers about a move to the DC universe. Now, when I read this article, I can totally see how people can come to this conclusion. And there are several things within the article that actually come to this conclusion if you take away that trusted sources part of the article. First, they said that Dave Bautista has been saying that after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he is done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And on Twitter, he has expressed many times that he is not happy playing Drax at all, or how the conclusion of Drax's story was very unfulfilling for his character. Not to mention, James Gunn has several times said that whichever direction Dave Bautista goes, he will support him. From that alone, yeah, one could possibly conclude that if he still wants to be in the comic book genre, there is really only one major comic book realm that would definitely take him, and that would be the DCEU. Not to mention, if he's really truly still best friends with James Gunn is having a hell of a time over at Warner Brothers because they're allowing him to make any DC movie he wants, and it does seem like James Gunn could potentially grab Dave Bautista over to the DCEU. The other point in Giant Freaking Robots article was that what characters could he play? And Dave Bautista actually was interested in playing two characters. The first one was Bane, which is funny because Zack Snyder said that's too on the nose. But Dave Bautista did say that he would definitely play Bane if that opportunity came up, which is interesting because one of James Gunn's rumored DC projects was Secret Six. And guess who's in Secret Six? Bane. So it seemed like it would be a good opportunity to bring Dave Bautista over to DCU and work with James Gunn once again. The other character they suggested was Lobo, and this actually is coming from Dave Bautista himself. In fact, this past Justice Con, Dave Bautista did say he wanted to explore the character of Lobo if he had the chance. Now, Lobo was a DC film that was about to be made by none other than Michael Bay himself. I think that would have fit perfectly with Michael Bay. Explosions, action-packed, blockbuster. Yeah, that sounds like a Michael Bay film. As far as we know, that is not happening, but like other DC projects at Warner Brothers, even though they're not working on it now, at one point in time they were talking about it, and so it's still kind of in limbo until the right people come in and take on the project. So yeah, I guess Dave Bautista could play Lobo or Bane, and I think he'd be pretty perfect for both roles. Alright, let's talk about The Flash. So there was this gigantic article from The Hollywood Reporter all about Michael Keaton and all the different roles that he was in. A lot of interesting stuff in that article where he talks about not being very much of a comic book movie fan, hasn't seen any comic book movies unless it's the one he was in, like Vulture, and of course, Batman. And in that article, it was revealed that Michael Keaton actually finished all his Batman scenes for the Flash movie, which honestly is a kind of a bummer because Ben Affleck hasn't even gone on set yet, and Michael Keaton's done. So that means they won't actually meet. But, you know, there could be some editing techniques to make it look like they're actually interacting with each other. It's Hollywood after all. But he did have quite a comment about the Flash movie. Keaton was impressed by the script of Birds of Prey writer Christina Hodson and by Muschietti's vision, and he was intrigued by the possibility of returning to the character he had helped shape in the public imagination. Frankly, in the back of my head, I always thought, I bet I could go back and nail that mother effer. Keaton says of Batman, a role he walked away from when he didn't like the script for the 1995 Joel Schumacher movie Batman Forever, which ultimately starred Val Kilmer. And so I thought, well, now that they're asking me, let me see if I can pull that off. It took him some time to wrap his head around the parallel universe concept, however. I had to read it more than 3 times to go, wait, how does this work? Keaton says. They had to explain to me several times. By the way, I'm not being arrogant. I hope about this. I don't say it like I'm too groovy. I'm stupid. There's a lot of things I don't know about. And so I don't know. I just kind of figured it out, but this was different. What's really interesting is how much more I got Batman when I went back and did him. I get this on a whole other level now. I totally respect it. I respect what people are trying to make. I never looked at it like, oh, this is just a silly thing. It was not a silly thing when I did Batman, but it has become a giant thing. culturally. It's iconic, so I have even more respect for it because what do I know? This is a big deal in the world to people. You've got to honor that and be respectful of that. Even I go, Jesus, this is huge. So the Flash movie must be something really special for Michael Keaton to look at it now and say, hey, that's really cool. I think I like this script. I'm going to get back into the Batman suit and become Batman once again. And it's kind of cool to see him back in the suit. When we're all talking about when is Ben Affleck going to return? I don't know if it's going to take this much years for Ben Affleck to return as Batman. Like I said, never say never, because they can always come back in another type of story, like Michael Keaton's Batman. What's also interesting in that article was this little sentence right here. Various parallel universes where he'll encounter different versions of DC heroes, including Keaton's Batman as well as Ben Affleck's. Encounter different versions of DC heroes, including Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman. Wait a minute. So that means there are other heroes that are different versions of the heroes that Flash knows in his own universe. To me, that just means that we'll probably meet Henry Cavill as Superman and maybe possibly others as well. Who knows at this point how many characters are actually going to be in this movie? It seemed pretty vast. All right, let's talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now, James Wan is back to do Aquaman 2. Now, the working title for Aquaman the Lost Kingdom is called Necrus. Necrus was referred to as a city that, appears and disappears, and is ruled by a tyrant ruler, Mongol. But today, James Wan kind of gives us a little clue about what Aquaman 2 or Aquaman the Lost Kingdom is going to be about. Aquaman 2 is very heavily inspired by Planet of the Vampires. Director James Wan tells Total Film in the new issue of the magazine featuring Dune on the cover. You can take the boy out of horror, but you can never take the horror out of the boy. What? Planet of the Vampires? I actually remember seeing this a long time ago in school. It's an Italian sci-fi horror movie where a group of scientists lands on a planet, finds this derelict ship, and they start killing each other, not trusting each other, because these bodiless aliens take over the bodies. So in a way, it's almost like The Thing. But what's interesting is this movie actually inspired Alien and Prometheus. Yeah, a group of scientists finds a derelict ship, all hell breaks loose, aliens? Yeah, that's the movie. But it's interesting that James Wan is going in this direction. And I kind of love that. I love that sci-fi horror element, the mystery to it. So it almost feels like they're going on an adventure, finding this lost kingdom, and all hell breaks loose. But it's cool to hear him actually bringing that horror element, that eccentric James Wan horror element that we've come to love. He showed a little bit of that in the first Aquaman, but for the most part, it was a pretty fun, vibrant, and adventurous movie. Well, the first movie took a lot of people by surprise, right? And that's partially because they were not familiar with the comic book, which deals in this very lurid, strange world. He says, people were taken aback that I didn't throw all that stuff away and make a dark, heavy film, but I didn't feel that would have been right for it. So with the second film, I feel it will be easier for people to accept where we go because I've already laid the foundation. I wonder because Geoff Johns is not involved, so yeah, he can do whatever he wants in the horror route. But if he's really adding that horror sensibilities to it, I'm really intrigued by this. But that also could mean this is like, how they're always saying, they're always referring to the trilogy, to the Star Wars trilogy. That was A New Hope. Now it's The Empire Strikes Back. I don't know why they do that. I guess they just do. So I guess the second film qualifies as the darker movie. But I'm okay with that because I want to see James Wan do James Wan, not being influenced by anybody and actually making that horror sensibilities that he actually teased us about for the first movie. Because in the first movie, he actually says it's going to be scary, there's going to be some horror elements, sea monsters, but it turned out not to be that type of scary. But now, I think he's going to be able to do that. Mixing in a superhero genre with a genre that is like Planet of the Vampires, aka Alien, aka Prometheus, aka The Thing. This is compelling stuff and actually is down my alley. It certainly would qualify for changing up the comic book genre.